Hello peak performer, welcome to the next video here on my YouTube channel. Today I want to talk with you about how you can resolve limiting beliefs, rewrite your story and make sure that you're creating an empowered life for yourself. You might have heard a lot of people talk about limiting beliefs, but you always ask yourself the question, what are limiting beliefs? You might not really understand what that means. So today I want to really dive with you into this topic. So let's get started. Hi and welcome back to my YouTube channel. My name is Arndt and I'm a peak performance coach and stress management trainer. And I'm really excited that you are here today to watch the video on limiting beliefs. Before we dive in, make sure that you're heading over to my YouTube channel as well, because over the last 1.5 years, I have created over 180 videos for you in order to help you understand how you can build peak performance tools and peak performance habits in order to be successful in your life. So make sure that you hit the subscribe button and you hit also the little notifications bell to make sure that every time new content is online, you will receive a little update about that. And I'm releasing content every Monday and every Friday. So let's dive into the topic on limiting beliefs. In the last week's video, I told you a little bit about limiting beliefs. I said that there are two different ways on how to do that. I think, first of all, we are all having limiting beliefs. We are all having these limiting beliefs that are coming usually from our past and that we have learned maybe in a hard way in our life and that are so ingrained within us that every time we are experiencing even just a slightly similar situation, we are kind of drawing our experience back into that current situation. And we are like, oh, this is just the same thing that is happening to me again. And what is really important to know is, first of all, of course, what are limiting beliefs? And limiting beliefs are just really simple statements that we believe to be true. And limiting beliefs and beliefs, of course, in general, come from a lot of different areas. They come from our own experiences, right? They come from how we grew up in our life, from our culture, from our society, from our parents, our siblings. We formed basically certain beliefs and certain experiences that we believe to be true. It is at the end of the day, the reality that we are living in. But the good news is it doesn't have to be that reality for the rest of your life. Because if you can think one way, you can also think the other way. So this is really important to understand when we're talking about belief systems, because we usually just say and think, well, this is just the way I am and I can't change this about myself. This is usually the way how we justify our behaviors, and sometimes we use it as an excuse to make changes in our life, right? This is just the way I am. Have you heard yourself say this sentence before? Well, I'm not surprised, because we are all human beings and we are all perfectly imperfect. So limiting beliefs are just statements that we believe to be true, and they are part of our reality loop. If you are interested to learn more about the reality loop, make sure that you head over to my YouTube channel and that you're watching this video. Anyway, so when you are having certain limiting beliefs, they usually circle around specific topics in your life. It could be, for example, relationships. For example, maybe you think that all men are difficult or all women are incapable of having loving relationships. When you're looking around you, you might see that people are actually able to have successful relationships, but you just believe of yourself that you are incapable of living in a really happy relationship. This is a limiting belief. So this is just one example within the relationship space. It could also be a limiting belief that is, for example, part of your work life. So for example, you think that you always have to say yes to everything to make sure that everybody loves you and appreciates you. That could be a limiting belief, because we are almost self-sabotaging ourselves in order to make sure that we are pleasing other people while we forget to take care of ourselves. So really important to identify these limiting beliefs and to rewrite your story in order to make sure that you are really living the life that you want to live, okay? So when we are talking about limiting beliefs and rewriting your story, of course, then the next question is, how can I rewrite my story? Where do I start, right? And the first step always is to identify your limiting belief. If you don't have awareness around what your limiting belief is, it might be really difficult to actually go ahead and change that limiting belief, right? But if you feel stuck in a certain situation, if you feel like there's a certain thing in your life that you're not really happy with and you're trying to move forward, and maybe you have tried to move forward over and over again, but it's just something there that keeps you from moving forward, then there might be a limiting belief at play. So it's really interesting to identify that limiting belief in order to help you to move and shift away from that limiting belief into a more powerful thinking style. And that brings me to step number 2. When you want to rewrite your story, you need to basically shift that oftentimes a negative limiting belief into something more powerful. And one of the exercises that you can do here that is really interesting is to ask yourself the question, when was that limiting belief or that statement that you just identified in part number 1 not true? Because oftentimes we can find many different examples where we had a different experience or where we saw other people have a different experience. And it doesn't mean that because that one person had a different experience than you, that you will never be able to have that experience. Your mind is a very powerful tool. Your mindset is extremely important in order to help you move into a more successful life. This is the first most important thing that you need to understand. And if you want to learn more about mindset, I do have a video for you on that on my YouTube channel as well. So just check that one out. So once you have identified your limiting belief, in step number 2, you need to make this limiting belief more positive. That means that you need to find an affirmation that is more positive, more powerful than what you were thinking before. For example, at the beginning of this video, you were thinking that you're incapable of having a loving and happy relationship. And now I want you to basically rewrite that and say, I am capable of having a loving relationship, or I am worth it to have a loving and capable relationship. Because maybe in your limiting belief, there's also maybe a doubt that you are worthy or that you are ready to have a loving relationship, right? So really think about this a little bit and identify what is that limiting belief that is really holding you back and how can you move forward. Okay, so in step number 2, you want to rewrite your limiting belief into something more positive. And I already mentioned it earlier in this video, but I want to mention it again because we have all mental flexibility and we can also all shift our perspective at all times. So if you are thinking in really negative ways, your mind is also capable of thinking the complete opposite. There is flexibility in your mind. Your brain is flexible and you can do whatever you set your mind to do. And this is really important to think about and to be convinced about when we're talking about limiting beliefs. You need to believe that what you are saying is true. And at the beginning, when you're looking at this new positive affirmation or this new positive belief, you might be a little bit doubtful and it might feel a little bit awkward because maybe over 5 or 10 or 15 years, you have thought the other way. So what is really important when we are talking about habit building and when we are talking about integrating more powerful beliefs into your day-to-day life is repetition. Because when you have believing something different for such a long period of time, of course, you need to help your brain to make that shift. And you do that by repeating that belief over and over again. So what I, for example, like to do is that when I have identified a limiting belief, and believe me, you can do this exercise over and over again, because there's probably not just one limiting belief that you have in your life. There are multiple limiting beliefs in your life. And as you go along in your life, you will identify different limiting beliefs in order to help you get a little bit closer to who who you want to become. And so one of the things that I do in order to really ingrain that new belief into my head is that I'm writing it on a piece of paper, and I'm putting that piece of paper on my work screen, on my bedside table, on my mirror, on my fridge. So in all these different places where I can see this over and over and over again, because I'm helping to train my mind to think in a different way. And that is not something super easy to do because your brain has been thinking that other way. But I think it is really helpful to remind myself and yourself that just by the sheer knowledge that there is mental flexibility and that you can think in other ways helps you to actually do that. So writing your new belief on a piece of paper could be one way to do that. Or it could be to find a really powerful quote online and to use that quote or that affirmation as a screensaver for your phone. Or it could also be that you're recording yourself with that new belief. So for example, your new belief is that I'm able and I'm worthy to have a loving relationship. And so I would literally record myself multiple times. Maybe I'm reading the sentence 50 times. And then in the evening, before I go to bed, I am listening to my own recording. This could be really, really powerful in order to help your brain ingrain that new belief into your life. This sounds maybe funny, but it is really true, and there's a lot of research behind this on why it is so powerful to do these different meditations or to do and listen to these different affirmations while we are either just waking up or while we are going to sleep, because it is easier for our brains to access the subconscious mind or the unconscious mind in order to dive into like some of the limiting beliefs that are maybe there. But there's one really important step that I want to share with you today that you need to start integrating in your life if you want to build a better belief system. And the very simple but very sometimes difficult answer to that is that you need to get into action. Taking action is really, really important. Why? Because if you are just watching this video, for example, but you don't do an exercise, that is already not getting into action, right? Or if you're watching this video and you're not writing down your new affirmation, that is not getting into action. So if you really want to change your belief system, guess what? You need to get into action. You need to start doing something differently. You need to start behaving differently. So even when it comes to then trying to have a loving relationship, for example, or making sure that you feel like you are worthy of having a loving relationship, then you need to also act accordingly. And that is really important. So when you find yourself in a situation in the future where this limiting belief is coming up, and trust me, it will come up, especially when we are feeling triggered, especially when we are in maybe a higher stress situation, our triggers are there because they have been ingrained in who we are, and it actually takes some time to change them. And so you need to get into action. And when you are finding yourself in a situation where that trigger is coming up, where that limiting belief is coming up, you need to ask yourself the question, how can I act differently today to rewrite my story? Okay, let me tell you this again. So when a limiting belief is coming up, you need to ask yourself the question, how can I act differently today to rewrite my story? This is really, really important. And if you, again, get not into action, nothing in your life will change. But you are capable to have mental flexibility, shift your perspective, and create a new reality loop. So good luck with that. I hope that you found these insights helpful. If you did, make sure that you give me a thumbs up on the video, that you leave me a comment down below if you have any further questions, or maybe share with me your limiting belief. Share it with all of us, share it with our community, and let us be there for each other, to support each other and to lift each other up. Okay, so thank you so much for watching this video today. With gratitude, Julia.